That's where you're getting a lot of this from, right? Okay, so here's where it begins, right? Now, where this is coming from, this is all public information, by the way. This comes from the tax documents from the Church of Latter-day Saints and their 990 tax returns, tax forms, and so on and so forth, right? Okay. An investigation promoted by the Middle East Forum. Anyways, an investigation by the Middle Eastern Forum talks about $140 million in aid flowed from the LDS Church to Hamas specifically, and other radical organizations. Really, there was about 10 Islamist organizations that it was flown to, and we're going to get into all of those that are linked to Hamas and to the Muslim Brotherhood as well, and various other ones. So, this is what it is, right? First of all, you have the big one, and where it really begins is there's a charity by the name of Globus Relief, right? Now you could look these people up, right? Globus Relief. They are described as a Salt Lake City based charity established and run by senior Latter day Saint members. Okay. Globus Relief handed over at least $119 million of support to 10 radical Islamist recipients based on electronically filed 990 tax return data. Within that 119 million figure, the following specific amounts to named organizations are cited, and these are the organizations that $119 million went to, right? Islamic Relief, the exact global subamount is not Islamic Relief is the number one, and we're going to get into all these. We're going to break down every single one of these groups and exactly why that's such a crazy thing, okay? But you have Islamic Relief, you have Human Appeal, number 2. Number 3, you have Muslim Aid, you have United Muslim Relief and the United Mission for Relief and Development, the UMR. You have Life for Relief and Development, American Near East Refugee Aid, or the ANERA for short, and various others. So Islamic Relief got the biggest part of that $119 million, right? There was over $140 million in total funded from Mormon aligned organizations and quote unquote charities to Islamist organizations, top 10, right? Out of that 140 million total, the biggest majority of that, 119 million came from Globus Relief. Globus Relief gave that to various different organizations. The Church of LDS personally has given Globus Relief $500,000 in total, and also all the senior members of Globus Relief are connected to the Church of Latter-day Saints, right? Because the Church of Latter-day Saints, what a lot of people try to claim is, well, Globus Relief isn't officially owned by the Church of Latter-day Saints. So therefore it's not an official wing of the Church of Latter-day Saints. Yeah. But so they would try to play down the ties or act as if there is no ties between Globus Relief and the Church of Latter-day Saints, the Mormon Church. So let's look at Globus Relief, shall we? Globus Relief is a Salt Lake City. It's in Salt Lake City, Utah. Mormon Central, of course. City based 5013C, that means it's a nonprofit charity, founded and led by really Senior Latter-day Saints, okay? It's an independent nonprofit not officially owned by the LDS Church. On paper, should be called the LSD Church. Calling it the LSD Church this whole time, right? The LDS Church. It might as well be called the LSD Church, right? Okay, totally asserted at least 119 million in cash and various other means were sent to 10 radical Islamist recipients from 2013 through 2023. Now, let's break that down a little bit, right? Here is the connection to, people would say, well, is Globus Relief, it's not even really connected to the Church of Latter-day Saints, to the Mormon Church. Like, wow, where are you even getting this from, right? So let's break it down a little bit, shall we? Let's look at take a deeper look at Globus Relief and see who exactly is Globus Relief personally, right? Globus Relief. Let me get here, and let's talk about their leadership for a second, right? Here's a clear, straightforward breakdown of the connections between the key names at Globus Relief and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or the LDS Church, or the Mormons. The Mormon Church, because people know better what that is. They tried to rebrand and call themselves the LDS Church because they got so much persecution for the word Mormon, and they've been trying to get away from that word. But the Mormon Church, right? I'll explain it simply, okay? Now, although Globus Relief is technically not officially owned, run, or controlled by the LDS Church as an official wing of the Church of Latter-day Saints, it is an independent 5013C nonprofit. The church itself has officially given it around $500,000, right? And the organization was established by, and currently is led, and has been led the entire time in its tenure, by active members of the LDS Church, meaning faithful members of the LDS Church who live in Utah and are deeply a part of that community. This is why critics like the Middle East Forum call it a Mormon-aligned or Mormon-run charity. Okay, let's look at their leadership. These are the main paid executives based in Salt Lake City. Dan Henry, or Dan W. Henry. This is the CEO and president of Globus Relief. The CEO and president of Globus Relief is an active member of the Latter-day Saint Church. He and his family are longtime members in the Utah LDS community. His son, Chase Henry, also serves as the COO, the Chief Operating Officer, over the region. Now, and then you have Bradley Spencer, executive director, who lives in Riverton, Utah, a heavy LDS area. He has spoken publicly defending Globus on LDS-oriented podcasts like Ward Radio, right? And then you have the son, Chase Henry, and we talked about that. We're gonna dive a little bit deeper though into exactly what it is, exactly how they are connected, right? So this is what you have. With the president and CEO, Daniel W. Henry, who's the longtime CEO of Globus Relief and has been for a while, there's a family-run aspect, and you'll see here. Deep historical family roots in the church that he has. His namesake ancestor, Daniel Henry, who was born in 1825 and died in 1914, was a Mormon battalion veteran. Company D, 1846 and 47, pioneer, tithing payer, temple labor donor, and a local leader in Manti, San Pete County in Utah. Sheriff, city treasurer, president of the 48th Quorum of the 70 for 35 plus years, right? Modern Dan lives and works in the Salt Lake City, Utah LDS community. So he operates, so his father has a history of being extremely connected and a higher up member of the Church of Latter-day Saints, right? Sheriff, city treasurer, and president of the 48th Quorum of the 70 for over 35 years. And he's actually the one who founded Globus Relief. So the Globus Relief has been in the family for quite some time, right? and is being still family owned and operated as his son is being groomed to take it over after he's gone. And he, the current president and CEO, although doesn't publicly hold a high position inside of the Mormon church, comes from Mormon purity, right? Mormon royalty, and still operates in the same Utah Latter-day Saint professional network today. Then you have Bradley Spencer. He's the executive director based in Riverton, Utah, which is also a very heavy Mormon suburb south of Salt Lake City. He appeared as a guest, his ties to the church, he appeared as a guest on Ward Radio, which is a popular Mormon-oriented podcast in January of this year, earlier this year, January 2026, to defend Globus against the allegations that they were connected to the Church of Latter-day Saints. It's kind of hilarious that you would be a Latter-day Saint who goes on a podcast that is completely centered around Latter-day Saints to describe to the world how you're not connected to Latter-day Saints, right? A clear sign of engagement with the active Latter-day Saint community. Alumni of Utah Valley University in Orem, Utah, right? And, Utah Valley University, that's where Charlie Kirk was assassinated, by the way. And his assassin and their family were also heavy into the Mormon church as well. So that's another LDS heavy area with many church students there. That's where he is an alumni of, and fits the profile of active Utah Latter-day Saints and nonprofit leadership, right? He has previous roles in Utah nonprofits and businesses, and a strong local community ties it to that area. Then you have Chase Henry, right? The CEO and president's son. He's the COO, Chief Operating Officer. He inherits the same deep family pioneer Mormon battalion heritage as his father, raised and working in the Salt Lake City, Utah Latter-day Saint community. No separate public callings or bios found beyond the Globus role, proving that that's his original ties, right? Then you have number 4, Rob Cunningham, the Director of Operations, who has over 20 years in domestic/international logistics, over 25 years total experience based in Salt Lake City metropolitan area. And you see that he operates in the same Utah nonprofit warehouse logistics dominated by the LDS community. Longtime Globus employee. He was there for over 10 years. Mentioned in 2010 through 2022 news on Haiti and Ukraine shipments. He is also a believer in Mormonism. He's a Mormon, right? Then we go to the board of trustees. We have Dennis Van Leeuwen, the chairman and an independent board member since 2001. He was the president of RVC Construction, which is an Intermountain West construction design build firm for over 40 years, right? Classic Utah businesses leader profile. Construction firms in the Intermountain West are overwhelmingly owned and led by Mormons, right? The board service since 2001 shows a long-term commitment to a Utah-based Mormon-aligned nonprofit. Then you have Daniel Driggs, independent board member, founder of Paint Sundry Solutions, a national distribution company. HQ is Kirkland, Washington. He retired in 2006, then built multiple full-service car wash detail businesses in Utah. Now, he is connected to the church as well. You see, so they say, well, Globus Relief isn't totally connected to the Mormons. But we're going through multiple people, through the people that run Globus Relief, and every single one of them is a Mormon. Every single one of them is a Mormon, which is interesting, right? Would you... If you're not a Mormon charity, right? If you're not a whatever, why aren't there any Christians that work, non-Mormon Christians that work for Globus Relief at the highest levels? Why aren't there any atheists? Why aren't there any Hindus? Why are they all Mormons? No Jehovah's Witness? They're all Mormons, right? So, proving the connections between the two, right? Daniel Driggs, who served 12 years as the trustee and chairman of West Ridge Academy, a Utah residential treatment that has a strong historical and cultural tie to the Mormon Church. It has served thousands of Latter-day Saint youth and families and was founded with church community involvement. This is one of the strongest institutional links on the board. Then you have Kristen Fugel, another independent board member. She's the director of legal affairs at the Adamantium Real Estate Entertainment Law Specialist, Salt Lake City based. And she has a strong Utah nonprofit / philanthropy presence in Mormon cultural circles, serves on the Supreme Philanthropy Advisory Committee, which is a trauma healing nonprofit popular in Mormon communities in Utah. She's the former board member for Intermountain Medical Center Patient Family Advisory Council, which was founded directly by the LDS Mormon Church and remains culturally tied to it, right? She also listed as the secretary on Soulfield Music Team, which includes an advisory board with members that have direct Latter-day Saint Church leadership experience. Examples like the former global director of leadership development in the missionary department of the Mormon Church, right? Then you have Jeff Lockhart, another independent board member for Globus Relief. He's a software and architect entrepreneur, co-founder and former chief architect of SalesRabbit, a cloud mobile sales platform now involved with Mentrios healthcare training. He has a BS in computer engineering from Brigham Young University. Of course he does, right? BYU 2002 through 2011, which is owned and operated by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The vast majority of students, faculty are all active members. Attendance is a major cultural religious milestone for Utah Latter-day Saints based in Provo, Utah. BYU is named after, we know, Brigham Young, who's one of the biggest people in Mormon history, right? Directly connected. Then we have Mark W. Pugsley, another independent board member of Globus Relief. He, as a prominent Utah attorney in the Latter-day Saint community, served as executive board member of Globus 2001 through 2006, and then came back 2020 to now. He's a guest on the Mormon Stories podcast, multiple different episodes, including a 2023 discussion on Ensign Peak Advisors SEC fine against the Mormon Church for investment disclosure issues and broader culture of fraud in Mormonism. He's openly critical of certain of the financial practices inside of the Mormon Church, but remains a public voice with and around Mormon circles. Earlier service on the Utah State Bar Young Lawyers Division Board and Salt Lake City Citizens Board, right? Then you have David Russell, who's another independent board member who has over 40 years of experience as an HR consultant and business leader, and ran his own consulting firm for 30 plus years, then joined Mercer, and then in Salt Lake City. He is also operates in Salt Lake City's professional HR scene, which is also heavily dominated by Mormons and Mormon influenced, and he is outspokenly a Mormon as well. So throughout the entire board and the upper echelon levels, including the COO, CEO, and president, you have extreme immense ties all throughout to the Mormon Church. You have family royalty that founded the organization and the family bloodline that's taken it over and continues to take it over. You have people, BYU graduates, which is owned. You have people that were connected to many other businesses, many other companies, many other circles, many other cultural circles, many other charities that were directly founded by the Mormon Church, and a lot of them are extremely active members within the Mormon Church as well, and outspokenly Mormon. I go on Mormon podcasts, and they defend the Mormon Church. So it's safe to say that Globus Relief is interwoven with the Church of Latter-day Saints maybe really is an understatement, right? Now, Globus Relief, they received personally $500,000 officially from the Mormon Church, right? Almost all leaders and board members are active Latter-day Saints living and working near the Salt Lake City, Provo, Riverton, Utah, which is the center of the Mormon Church. The BYU education service on Utah nonprofits that were founded by the Mormons, like Westridge Academy or Intermountain, Family Pioneer History, that created Globus Relief, and appearing on the podcasts for Mormon news and Mormon media all throughout. The ties are undeniable of Globus Relief. Now, the reason why that matters so big, obviously, is because we look at Globus Relief was the number one organization that's in that $140 million claim of ties to Hamas and radical Islam, right? Now, we're going to look at that $119 million real quick. Now, where does that $119 million go? That's a good question, isn't it? Let's break it down, shall we? And by the way, before we even break that down, not only is it Globus Relief, right? We're going to get into these other organizations as well. Globus Relief is just one of them, $119 million. You also have Lifting Hands, which is another organization that sent $19.5 million to radical Islamist organizations. Direct LDS charities that are owned by the church itself that have sent millions of dollars to radical Islamic organizations. And we're going to get into those. We're going to get into all that as well, right? So let's keep looking at Globus Relief for a second here. Let's look at the funding breakdown chart for Globus Relief. $119 million total from 2013 through 2023. Let's look at the recipients of this $119 million. We have the Islamic Relief, and we're going to break each one of these down and show you why these people are, why this is considered a red flag, right? You have the Islamic Relief. They received $64 million from Globus Relief. You have Muslim Aid. They received 16 million. United Muslim Relief and the UMR, they received over 10 million. Life Relief and Development, around 3 million. Human Appeal, around 2.5 million. American Near East Refugee Aid, ANEAERA, they received 2.5 million. There's a Zakat Foundation, 2.7 million, and other recipients around 10 to 15 million. And we're going to get into each of those and why what they're connected to, right? But let's look at Islamic Relief, right? Islamic Relief received $64 million from Globus Relief, right? $64 million. Now, who is Islamic Relief? Well, and what is that, right? That's just a nice, besides having Islam right in the middle of the name, that's just a nice organization and a charity that helps Muslims with whatever it is or whatever it may be, right? So, well, let's look at who is Islamic Relief. Islamic Relief actually has a really weird and shady history, right? They have a very strange and shady history. Let's look for a minute at exactly who is Islamic Relief and what kind of history that they have, right? Yeah, you're gonna be very intrigued to hear some of this, right? Islamic Relief, let me get here. Islamic Relief is a major operational humanitarian organization with a documented track record of large-scale delivery, right? It has faced repeated serious allegations of indirect ties to Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood networks, especially in the Gaza Strip. Now, all of this information is publicly available as of now. Now, let's go a little bit deeper, shall we? Why? What specifically is it about Islamic Relief? Well, I'll explain it right here. Do 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 do. Let me get to my information about Islamic Relief. Because you're going to find it very interesting. Okay, Okay. Hold on a minute. Okay, here's the thing with Islamic Relief, right? Here's the weird, shady, strange history about Islamic Relief. That's really weird, right? They have been tied to Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood. And it's not just a little bit of a tie, right? It's not just like, well, they were here and there and possibly tied, and it's some weird back end angle that nobody can explain, and nobody could officially tie them to Hamas and radical Islamic organizations, like a lot of people that want to defend them or the Mormon church would stay. But let's actually look at the truth of the matter, shall we? Islamic Relief actually has such credible ties to radical terrorism that they were the Islamic Relief. The full name Islamic Relief Worldwide, or IRW, with national branches like Islamic Relief USA, is one of the world's largest Muslim-based international NGOs. It is explicitly inspired by Islamic principles, but states it operates according to universal humanitarianism standards, claims neutrality, impartiality, and independence. But here's a fact-based breakdown drawn from its own official materials, public financial records, government investigations, watchdog reports, like the Middle Eastern Forum, and news coverage, okay? Islamic Relief was founded in 1984 in Birmingham, UK, right? Interesting. Right, it's from England, by medical student Dr. Hani El Banna and a small group of Muslim activists / students in direct response to the famine in Sudan / East Africa. They raised initial funds, £135,000, for emergency aid. Their global headquarters is in Birmingham, UK. It operates as a federation of independent national offices for Islamic Relief USA in Los Angeles, founded in 1993, offices in Canada, Europe, etc. The legal status, they're a UK registered charity. IRUSA is a 5013C nonprofit. Their tax ID is 95-4453134. It is not a US designated terrorist organization, right? But keep listening. Not see, they love to say it is not a US designated terrorist organization, as if no one else in the entire world has ever designated them. Oh, wait. They have. Okay, so let's continue. They say they work in 40 to 50 plus countries, and in 2020 through 2022, they had they gave 193 million pounds away, right? And reported revenue of 275.6 million pounds in 2024. Now, the thing is that it describes itself as the largest Muslim-inspired humanitarian organization and a member of the UK's Disaster Emergency Committee. But let's dig deeper into exactly who the Islamic Relief is. There is many controversies and alleged links to Hamas and radical Islamist networks. This is the most heavy scrutinized aspect, especially in the context of the LDS funding discussion. The primary source of detailed allegations from various sources. A U.S. think tank named various things. Okay. Other watchdogs and governments have echoed or have similar concerns. Let's look at this, okay? This is all open source evidence. Direct partnerships in Gaza with Hamas-linked entities and officials. Funds the Gaza Zakat Committee, Islamic Zakat Society. These are people that they fund, okay? The Islamic Relief officially outspokenly outsourcing public information funds the Gaza Zakat Committee, the Islamic Zakat Society, or the IZS, which is described as operating under Hamas's control. The IZS board members and staff include Hamas preachers that are specifically for Hamas, that preach, that are members of Hamas outspokenly. They don't hide it from anybody. They are members of the board of the IZS, which receives direct money from Islamic Relief. In example, Hazam el-Siraj, student of Hamas founder Sheikh Ahmed Yassin, who has spoken at Hamas's events outspokenly. Islamic Relief also founded projects run by Al-Farah, Benevolent Society, led by senior Hamas figure Ramadan Tambro and others tied to Hamas programs. They also have partnerships with Hamas political figures. An example, Ghazi Hamad of the Hamas Politburo, Abdul Salem Hania, son of former Hamas leader Ismail Hania. They have, and also staff and leadership issues. Some current and former officials have made outright public statements praising jihad, martyrdom, or anti Semitic tropes, or expressing support for Hamas and violence. And you can see that on social media from their own speeches. These are board members, higher ups within Islamic Relief. They have broader ideological ties, right? Founded and historically managed by individuals linked to the Muslim Brotherhood. Muslim Brotherhood networks describe it as a prominent Islamic institution. See, now here's where it gets really interesting. Right, because they would say, people with the Islamic Relief, they say, well, what's it matter if the mostly what's it matter if the royal bloodline of Mormonism founds this organization called Globus Relief, and all of the board members and every single one in the upper echelons of leadership are tied heavily into the Mormon culture, decide to give $64 million to an organization called Islamic Relief, meaning that the Mormons, outspokenly, just off the front, the Mormons are giving to the Muslims, right? So why would they give them $64 million? Well, what's wrong with them giving this Islamic Relief $64 million? They're just a normal organization, right? They haven't been ever linked to radical terrorism. Well, see, here's the problem with that. See, in 2014, Israel banned the IRW from the West Bank and later Gaza-related ops, citing evidence of funneling money to Hamas based on Shin Bet intelligence. The UAB, or the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, designated it as a terrorist organization. Banks, the HSBC 2016, UBS Credit Suisse, they closed accounts over terror financing concerns. The U.S. agencies, the FBI, the IRS, the OPM, reportedly built a criminal case in 2016 related to terrorism ties, and the status of that case is still ongoing now. That case is still being investigated. Plus, there are many people, European donors, an example from the Netherlands and Germany, have suspended or flagged all funding to the Islamic Relief over extremism and Muslim Brotherhood concerns. The U.S. State Department reviewed and cut some of their ties with it in 2020 and 2021 over anti-Semitic scandals, right? So that is one of the biggest things, right? So the biggest things where people would say, right, like the Mormon Church and Globus Relief would say, well, the thing is that there's no ties directly from America. America doesn't designate it as a terrorist group. And then they just act like that's the whole picture, like that's the above all and end all. And they refuse to mention Israel banned them in 2014. They refuse to mention that the United Arab Emirates outrightly lists them as a terrorist organization, that the Netherlands and Germany cut ties, that banks will close their accounts and will no longer allow them to use their accounts because they're afraid of them funding Hamas, that they have organizations that they personally give to that have outright spoken Hamas preachers and Hamas members on their boards that preach jihad, anti-Semitism, and globalize the Infadada, right? And that they themselves are under investigation from the FBI and the DOJ and have been for a decade now. That's who Islamic Relief really is, right? They received $64 million from Globus Relief. Now, let's continue, right? Besides Globus Relief, they also have Muslim that gave them $64 million. Then they gave another $16 million to Muslim Aid. Well, surely Muslim Aid doesn't have some crazy connections to radical Islam and radical terrorism, right? There's no way they're connected to Hamas. This is all for all those, Mormons out there that got pissed off and said, "What do you? No data, no facts, no dollars." Yeah, so every single dollar actually. And what do you have here, right? We have. Let me show you who the next on the list is. We have well, let's get to Muslim Aid, right? Muslim Aid is also another UK-based organization. It's one of the 10 organizations that we're calling the Big Ten that received approximately $16 million from Globus Relief between 2013 and 2023. Right? It's a major international Islamic charity founded in London in 1985 that focuses on disaster relief, poverty alleviation, and development projects. That's the words that they use out of their own mouth, right? Here is a complete fact-based breakdown of its documented or alleged ties to terrorism as well, primarily Hamas and related networks. This draws from public investigations, government designations, watchdog reports, investigative journalism, projects on terrorism, and the NEFA Foundation, and media like Telegraph, etc., and the UK Charity Commission's own findings. Muslim Aid itself has never a lot of people who defend it say that it's never been quote unquote officially designated as a terrorist organization. Well, yeah, because if I was money laundering, these people, you almost act like you don't know what money laundering is, right? You don't know how money laundering works. Al Capone probably never had any direct ties to illegal criminal organizations, right? And the drug cartel probably doesn't have any direct ties to illegal criminal organizations, right? The mafia didn't either. Yeah, money laundering, in case you don't know, the crime of money laundering is where you take money and then you give it to someone, but you put a couple of paths in between you and them so it looks like you're not connected, right? That's essentially what money laundering is. An example, drug dealer makes a whole bunch of money, right? Money laundering 101. Drug dealer makes $1 million. Drug dealer can't spend $1 million because then the IRS says, where did you get $1 million from? They make $1 million from illegal drugs, and they take that money, and then what they do is they open up a business. They open up a legal credicy business, right? And then they take that and they start to introduce clients. And what they do is they fudge the numbers of profits every week, every month over all their clients, little by little. And little by little, they take all the money from their profits and they put that into a bank under their business account of their official business. And while they're fudging the profits, they move some of that $1 million dirty money into the profits and make it look like it was done by profits. That's profit from their legitimate business, and then that puts their dirty money and makes it clean money over time, and then they pay taxes on it. So it's now clean money, even though it was dirty money. Then, after it's in their bank account, they take that money and then they go and they give it to another organization that's ran by someone else who does the same. And they take that money in as a donation and then they funnel it out back into dirty money. And that's how the underground crime scene uses legal methods to transfer money to each other, right? That's called money laundering. That's what money laundering is. So, if you were, now we are going to say allegedly, we're going to say, because we're going to say officially it has not been proven that the Mormon church is laundering money to radical Islam. But that doesn't mean that it never will be, right? That doesn't mean that it never will come out. That's what it is. But what we are saying, right? Because we have to say that. We have to say, well, they haven't officially blah 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 blah. Right? Because people say, oh, it's officially said blah, 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 and try to act like there's nothing there whatsoever. It's like, I wonder how anyone would ever do an investigation ever if we ever thought like that, right? And just ignored smoke trails and just went by what we had which means that no case would ever be solved ever because you have to use the gut to find the evidence, right? So, but if someone were to money launder, they probably wouldn't automatically send cash payments to Hamas. If they wanted, in theory, to get cash payments to Hamas, that's exactly how it would look. You give money, organization gives to an organization who gives to who it is, right? So that's essentially what the MEF is proposing is happening here. Money laundering between the Mormon Church and radical Islam. I personally believe that there is definitely a real connection between the two, and it's not a coincidence at all. I mean, it's pretty obvious that it's not a coincidence. Just watch. We'll just wait and see what comes out, right? And so they use fancy language like, well, the US, the UK, and the EU have not designated them as terrorist organizations. But then they don't tell you Israel banned them in 2014 from operating in the country. Entire banks closed their accounts. The UAE designated them as terrorist organizations, and Germany and the Netherlands won't touch them with a 10-foot pole, and they're under investigation by the FBI, actually. So now let's look at the Muslim. Let's look at the second one that they gave $20 million to, Muslim Aid, right? Now, here's their alleged ties. Well, surely they wouldn't give to two organizations that have such close ties to Hamas and radical Islamic terrorism, right? Well, let's look at it, right? Here are the ties from the second organization that received $20 million, funding to Al-Izan Charitable Society in Gaza. Right, they paid £2,500 in 2002, plus another £3,000 in 2003 to Al-Ishan, set aside another £13,998 in 2005. Al-Ishan was designated by the U.S. Treasury in 2005 as a sponsor of terrorism and linked to Palestinian Islamic Jihad and Hamas networks. Muslim Aid directly gave money to them in 3 different years. Muslim Aid's own accounts, the U.S. Treasury designation, and the UK Charity Commission of 2010 report is the links and the proof of that. The Charity Commission ruled the 2005 funds were never transferred, so technically it's not illegal funding, right? Because after it started to come out, they decided not to go through with giving them the money. Pre-2005 payments were before anyone was designated as a terrorist organization, so therefore it's not technically connected, right? I mean, this is the language that they use, right? There's always an excuse, always a reason why it's not really connected, always a reason why it's not the same, right? So Muslim Aid says that they were giving the payments for quote-unquote elderly and disabled care, right? Now let's look at other funding, other Gaza groups linked to Hamas. £325,000 were given by them to Islamic University of Gaza, where senior Hamas figures are teachers at the Islamic University of Gaza. Senior Hamas figures that are outspokenly a member of Hamas, that are senior officials in Hamas, teach there as university teachers. Plus, they gave £210,600 to 6 additional Gaza organizations since July 2009, including the Islamic Society and Islamic Center of Gaza, named in the U.S. Holy Lands Foundation trial as part of Hamas's quote-unquote social infrastructure. And Telegraph, where's the cited sources for that? Telegraph investigation from 2010, MEF reporting in the Holy Land Foundation court documents. Also, the groups were known Hamas linked, but Muslim Aid says that they were humanitarian powers. They also gave to the Union of Good Membership Association, listed as a participant member of the Union of Good, a coalition created by Hamas leadership in 2000 to funnel money to Hamas. The Union of Good was designated by the U.S. Treasury in 2008 as a terrorist fundraising network. It's like, come on, bro. Like, how many red lines does there gotta be? Right? So, like, when you take something like Globus Relief, right, the Mormon Church says, well, they're not officially owned by us. Well, yeah, but the founder was a high-ranking member inside of your church, and his entire bloodline continues to be in charge of it. And when we look and investigate every single higher-up in your entire organization and all your board members, they all have immense ties to Mormonism. right? And where they give to, your church directly itself gave $500,000 to the organization as well. So obviously the church officially sponsors the group. And on top of that, the other organizations that you give, which we're going to get into, are owned directly by the church and gave to the same exact organizations as Globus Relief, almost if they have the exact same blueprint of who they give to. Now, when we look at the people they give to, we see, what do we see? We see Islamic Relief, which you say is not a U.S. terrorist organization, but unfortunately, they were banned by Israel in 2014 for terrorism. They were designated a terrorist organization by the Arab Emirates. They had their bank accounts closed throughout various banks throughout Europe and the Middle East. Germany and the Netherlands cut all ties to them over their terrorism accounts. Right? This is not more than one thing. Maybe Israel just bans them in 2014, and you say, well, that's big in itself, right? Just that one thing alone, you're like, well, Israel's not just running around here banning everybody for no reason. It's a little interesting. But even if it was just that, you would say, but it's not just that. It's also a Muslim country. The United Arab Emirates designated them outrightly as a terrorist organization, on top of an Israel ban, on top of Germany and the Netherlands not talking to them, on top of being under active investigation by the FBI, on top of Germany and the Netherlands not touching them and banks closing their accounts. Then you have you gave them $64 million. Then you gave $20 million to Muslim Aid, who, by the way, we're going through right now, has multiple connections to radical Islamic terrorism and Hamas, right? And the organizations they fund have been designated by the U.S. Treasury as terrorist fundraising networks. The U.S. Treasury designated an archived Union of Good Materials, and the Israeli government statements and the NEFA Foundation reports is where we get all that information. Israel banned Muslim Aid from operating in the West Bank in 2008, citing these ties. Muslim Aid has not publicly confirmed ongoing membership, but has never denied the association either, right? Then you have Pakistan partnership with Al-Khidmat. UK and Pakistani branches openly partner with Al-Khidmat Foundation, which is the charitable arm of Jamaat-e-Islami. Al-Khidmat has publicly financed Hamas and works with Hizbul Mujahideen, a U.S. and India designated terrorist group that is designated by the U.S. actually as a terrorist group, and India as well. Where do you get that information? The public partnership videos and statements, the MEF and Islam News reporting. Muslim Aid describes it as legitimate humanitarian cooperation, but that's not what the U.S. or India describes it as, right? You have historical leadership ties. One founder, Chowdhury Muin-Uddin, was sentenced in Absentia in Bangladesh 2013 for war crimes linked to Jamaat-e-Islami killing squads during the 1971 war. Well, where do you get that evidence? Oh, I'm glad you asked. We got it from the Bangladesh War Crimes Tribunal, right? No cited sources, right? Because, all the book, there's no way that he doesn't have any evidence, right? They come in the comment section, he doesn't have any evidence, he doesn't have anything that says that it's connected. It's like, oh, well, actually, I think that's why I said in the comment section to him, I said, I think you're going to be very disappointed to see how much that we have and how much comes out about the links between the two, right? This is there's official investigations and clearances. In 2010, the UK Charity Commission inquiry, triggered by Telegraph reports, the Commission examined these payments and other allegations, right? Muslim Aid has received the UK government funding in the past, but lost some taxpayer support in 2015 because of their broader extremism concerns about Muslim charities. So that's the first two, right? So in total, that's 64 million for Islamic Relief, extremely shady ties, 20 million to the Muslim Aid. So we have $84 million directly from Globus Relief, which is enthralled with the Mormon members at the highest levels, giving directly to organizations that have numerous, one after the other, not just one here and then one there, which would be too much, but just boom, boom, another one, another one, another one, another one, another one. Let's keep going, shall we? Because we're going to go through every single one of these right? You got to give them all the receipts. Yeah? Give them all the receipts. Yep, let's keep going down the list. Now we have number 3. The United Muslim Relief, UMR, also given money by Globus Relief, also known as the United Mission for Relief and Development, a U.S.-based 5013C international humanitarian charity, EIN number 27-3175543. Right? Well, let's keep going. They received over $10 million from Globus Relief between 2013 and 2023. They call themselves a neutral aid organization helping civilians. However, they have faced repeated allegations of ties to Hamas, which is a U.S. designated terrorist organization, through their leadership, staff statements, partnerships, and operations in Gaza. Right? Let's look at some of those, shall we? Here's a detailed breakdown. Number 1, leadership and staff with pro-Hamas or extremist statements. Omar Shaheen, the former vice president of fundraising at UMR, previously with Islamic Relief, of course. In 2002, he preached a sermon invoking a hadith, saying, quote unquote, "You will keep on fighting with the Jews until the fight reaches the east of Jordan River. Then the stones and trees will say, 'O Muslim, O servant slaves of Allah, there is a Jew behind me, come and kill him.'" End quote. This is widely cited as an explicit endorsement of violence against Jews. Shaheen has also been linked to fundraising for the Holy Land Foundation, which is now a shut-down charity that was convicted, not accused, but convicted of funding and financing Hamas. Then you have Khalid Tarani, a past UMR official who previously ran American Muslims for Jerusalem, AMJ. At a 2002 AMJ conference, he reportedly cited a hadith calling for jihad to conquer Palestine with its people in a state of jihad, quote unquote, until the day of judgment. This is also pro-Hamas activism. You have Abed Ayoub, who is the current president and CEO, and the former president of Islamic Relief USA. As others note, UMR's close operational ties to other groups accused of Hamas financing, like Life for Relief and Development and Batamel. Then you have number 2, operations and partnerships in Hamas-controlled Gaza, support for Hamas-linked UFA, Union of Good or similar local entities. UMR has publicly supported or partnered with the Hamas-linked UFA charity in Gaza, profiled by MEF is tied to Hamas networks, advertising in Hamas newspapers. UMR has placed ads in Hamas-run or Hamas-friendly media outlets in Gaza alongside other U.S. charities like Med Global. Critics say this provides financial support and legitimacy to Hamas-controlled institutions. They coordinated with Hamas structures, like other aid groups operating in Gaza since 2007. UMR must work with Hamas ministries for access, distribution, and permissions. MEF argues that inevitable subsidies Hamas governance by supporting infrastructure or freeing up Hamas resources for other uses. Some broader network ties. The UMR works closely with other charities that have been by watchdogs labeled as part of a U.S. charitable network that subsidizes Hamas, including Life, Relief, and Development, Beta Male, which we just talked about. It should be called Beta Male. Connections through shared leadership or coalitions with Islamic Relief USA. It has participated in coalitions and joint appeals that include groups with documented Hamas links. Other official investigations. Allegations rely on open source intelligence, staff agents, partnership records, and Gaza operational realities rather than donor funds or attacks. Right? So those are the links that they have. Let's look at the rest of them. That's the top. So out of the 10, we have, right? Out of the top 3 of that 10, we have seen outright connections to them. Let's keep going, right? We're going to get through all. We're going to get through these, right? Let's go number 4, right? Let's look at number 4, right? Life for Relief and Development, or LIFE, a U.S.-based 5013C humanitarian organization, right? Their EIN number is 95-4402149. Headquartered in Southfield, Michigan, it has operated for over 30 years, focusing on what they call humanitarian aid, right? Well, let's look. Okay. Ties to terrorism and Hamas. Life for Relief and Development is described by critics as part of the U.S. charitable network that subsidizes Hamas through operations in Gaza. Leadership overlaps and historical associations. Specific documents concerned include Gaza operations and Hamas coordination. Life has conducted major aid projects in Hamas-controlled Gaza since 2007, requiring coordination with Hamas ministries for access, distribution, and permissions. Critics argue this inevitably supports Hamas governance structures by aiding infrastructure that Hamas controls and frees up their resources. It is grouped with other U.S. charities like UMR and Islamic Relief USA that operate extensively in Gaza and are accused of indirect subsidizing of Hamas, right? It has worked side alongside or shared operational ties with groups that have faced terrorism financing scrutiny, including connections traced back to the Holy Land Foundation, which is the largest U.S. charity convicted in 2008 of funneling millions of dollars to Hamas. They have historic leadership and donor overlaps with other flagged organizations, which have been cited in open source analysis. It has constantly, since 9/11, been in conversations that have appeared in broader terrorism financing discussions, including Gaza aid networks, right? Let's keep looking, right? Let's continue to look. You have number 5, the Zakat Foundation of America, which is a U.S.-based 501(c) humanitarian organization, EIN number 36-4476244, founded in 2001 and headquartered in Bridgeview, Illinois. They were given annual revenues of around $15 to $20 million in recent years. They received $2.7 million from Globus Relief between 2013 and 2023. It's ranked as one of those top 10. Okay. What you see here, the founder, Halil Demar's background. Before founding the Zakat Foundation, Demar worked as an official at the Benevolence International Foundation, the BIF, which the U.S. Treasury designated in 2002 as an Al-Qaeda financing front. Demir also served as an IHH aid coordinator for the Turkish Humanitarian Relief Foundation. The IHH has been accused by multiple governments, Israel, Germany, Netherlands, of ties to Hamas and recruiting jihadists. The IHH has publicly honored Shekran terrorists Shamil Besaveh, the Beslan school siege, and sent funds to Gaza through channels critics linked to Hamas. Okay, they have long-term partnership with the Islamic Charitable Society, the ICS, in the West Bank and Gaza area. ICS is designated by German intelligence as directly linked to Hamas. Zakat funded ICS's Al Rama school, announced in 2007 for 200 students. A teacher there was the window of a senior Hamas armed wing leader, Nashat al-Karmi, killed by Israeli forces in 2010 in connection with the murders of Israelis. Sent funds to Gaza through the IHH. An example, $80,000 reported in 2009 alongside Helping Hand. The IHH has faced bans and accusations of aiding Hamas's military wing. Partners with the Hamas-linked UFA, Union of Good, or similar Gaza entities profiled by MEF is tied to Hamas networks. You have Zakat is a key component to the Turkish regime's proxy organizations in the U.S., with close ongoing ties to the IHH. Grouped in the U.S. charitable network that subsidizes Hamas alongside UMR and Life for Relief and others. Critics argue Gaza work sustains Hamas governance structures, right? Linked to the Holy Land Foundation, which was the largest U.S. terrorist financing eviction involved with Hamas support. Extensive ongoing relief in Gaza. Right. Let's continue. Who do we got next? Then you have number 6, Human Appeal. The sixth organization to take money from Globus Relief. They're a UK-based with branches including international affiliates like Human Appeal USA and Australia. Major British international development. Why are they all from the UK? That's really interesting, isn't it? And relief charity founded in 1991 in Manchester focuses on, whatever it calls, blah, 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 right? They've been accused of long-standing and repeated links to Hamas. Number one, the Union of Good Membership Association. Human Appeal, for its UK office, was involved in forming or participating in the Union of Good, also called the 101 Days Campaign, an umbrella network created by Hamas, leadership to channel funds to Hamas in Gaza and the West Bank. The U.S. Treasury designated the Union of Good as a terrorist organization in 2008, describing it as an organization created by Hamas leadership to transfer funds to the terrorist organizations. Archived Human Appeal websites and Union of Good materials listed it as a participant and donor, right? Then you have, they had direct funding to named Hamas fronts. In 2005, a Hamas website reported that Human Appeals branch in the United Arab Emirates transferred funds to the IQRA and RIFDA, two organizations in the West Bank described as Hamas front groups. Earlier reports from 2003 through 2005 linked Human Appeal to funding other entities later identified in Hamas support infrastructure. Partnerships and recognitions by Hamas. In July 2011, Human Appeal was honored at a Hamas ceremony in Gaza, alongside other charities like Islamic Relief, in front of a banner featuring Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh. They have long-term partnerships with the Gaza Zakat Society, the IZS, a leading Hamas institution whose head, Hazem al-Sirjad, see a lot of these overlap with each other because they're all connected to one common link, and that's Hamas and radical terrorist organizations. Studied under Hamas founder Sheikh Ahmed Yassin and is closely tied to senior Hamas leaders. Human Appeal has been listed as a key partner by IZS and funding disclosed in Hamas newspapers as recently as 2022. You have the historical intelligence reports that are linked to them. 1996 CIA report listed Human Appeal International branches among Islamic charities used as conducts for funds to Hamas and Al-Qaeda. 2003 FBI document outlined a close relationship between Human Appeal International and Hamas, as well as the Holy Land Foundation, which was convicted in 2008, as we know. Leaked 2003 State Department cables expressed concerns that Human Appeal was sending support to Hamas associated organizations with some field offices linked to Al-Qaeda associates. Israel banned Human Appeal International in 2008 due to Union of Good links and alleged Hamas fundraising. Gaza operations, extensive ongoing work in Gaza. Right? Let's keep going. Then you have the seventh, like I said, it was 10 different Islamic organizations. Number 7 linked that was funded by Globus Relief. You have the American Near East Refugee Aid, or ANERA, a U.S.-based 501(c) nonprofit, EIN number 52-0882226. They were founded in 1968 in Washington, D.C. They call themselves a humanitarian aid group, right? They were, there's history of coordination with Hamas ministries. ANERA works closely with the Hamas-controlled Gaza Ministry School of Social Development, the MOSD, for beneficiary selection, cash assistant lists, and project implementation. MOSD is run by senior Hamas officials, some previously linked by the U.S. Treasury to Hamas smuggling operations. Projects rely on OMSD-provided household lists and coordination with other Hamas ministries, interior works, art, agriculture, etc. Partnership with Bayeder, the longstanding partner of Bayeder Association, a Gaza-based group whose reports explicitly note coordination and meetings with multiple Hamas ministries. Bayeder has been involved in joint projects with the son of Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh and is described by MEF as a major Hamas charity. Investigations uncovered ANERA staff and members expressing delight at the October 7, 2023 attacks. They called it a beautiful morning, praising Hamas fighters and endorsing calls to quote-unquote erase the Jews. This includes extreme anti-Semitic and pro-Hamas statements from personnel in Gaza operations. They have historic scrutiny. Past allegations in 2015 through 16, reports by Sharat Hadin claimed that ANERA transferred U.S. aid. And we already know all the corruption that came out about that with Doge, right? Funds to welfare education institutions run by Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad, including building a mosque for quote-unquote terrorist incitement, and kindergartens teaching kidnapping and rocket simulation. I actually have videotapes of a lot of those Palestinian kindergarten classes. Actually, Goldie Gamari released a whole video about that. That's also on here somewhere. In 2007, you have U.S. congressional investigation into an air support for an information center at the Islamic University of Gaza, widely viewed as Hamas-linked. Supported for the Unlimited Friends Association, the UFA in Gaza, a group that has praised Hamas and called for support of quote-unquote families of martyrs and prisoners of Allah and Islam. Right? Let's keep going. Then you have Beitumel, which I say should be pronounced Beta-mel, right? Beta-male. That's what I would call it. I call it beta male. It sounds like it sounds beta male. It's Baitulmaal. Sounds like beta male, right? Beta Male Incorporated is a U.S.-based 501c3 humanitarian organization, EIN number 20-0287320, headquartered in Irving, Texas, the Dallas area. Founded around 2004, it provides what it calls humanitarian relief. Let's look at the ties to Hamas and terrorism, right? We see in their leadership, Mazan Mokhtar, the executive director, previously served as executive director of the Muslim American Society, the MAS, widely viewed as the U.S. arm of the Muslim Brotherhood. In 2004, the Washington Post reported that Mokhtar was a known fundraiser for the Taliban and other jihadist groups in the 1990s and early 2000s. He has been linked to pro-jihad activities and statements, funding Hamas proxies fronts in Gaza. Beta Male has openly distributed aid, including all sorts of things through or to the United Friends Association for Social Development, the UFA/Generosity Association in Gaza, a group accused of very close ties to Hamas. UFA has praised Hamas supporting families of quote unquote what they call martyrs, which is suicide bombers and attackers, and maintains strong anti-Semitic positions. Israeli intelligence Alma Research Center and the ITIC has accused them of funneling money to Hamas charitable organizations, including in Jerin, co-founder of the Sheikh Hassan Haja Mohammed, linked in 2006 reports, part of the broader U.S. charitable network that subsidizes Hamas, right? Part of the broader U.S. charitable network that subsidizes Hamas, who would have guessed, alongside the UMR, the Life for Relief, and the Zakat Foundation, and others. Anti-Semitic rhetoric and activities, MEF and Watchdogs label it a pro-terror and anti-Semitic, citing statements, social media, and events associated with its leadership and partners that endorse Hamas or violence against Jews/Israel. Right? They've delivered extensive aid delivery in Hamas-controlled Gaza. And they say, out of their own mouth, that it requires coordination with Hamas ministries. Right? Let's keep going. Number 9 out of 10, you have Rahma Worldwide, RAHMA Worldwide, which is a Michigan-based 501c that appears prominently in the coverage of Hamas-aligned U.S. charities operating in Gaza. It has signed formal contracts with multiple Hamas ministries, social development, education, higher education, zakat. Internal 2022 Hamas Ministry of Interior documents explicitly state that Rahma's Gaza director is affiliated with the Hamas movement, right? What you're getting out of these new reports is it's not just their own tax returns that prove that they're connected to these. It's that within Hamas's own documents, they cite these organizations as being connected to Hamas. That's the bombshell that's dropping, right? So you have the, while direct Globus dollar amounts to Rahma are not always broken out separately, Rahma is part of the same ecosystem. Official LDS Charities has partnered with Rahma on Gaza projects listed in the church's 2025 caring report. A 2026 Rahma video still shows the joint Mormon Rahma work. Hamas ties direct contracts with Hamas officials, including designated figures like Ghazi Hamad, joint projects with Bayarder and other Hamas-linked entities, aid distributed under Hamas oversight. Right? These groups share common traits with the earlier ones. Right? The rest over ones, heavy operations in Hamas-controlled Gaza requiring coordination with Hamas ministries, partnership with entities that are known as Hamas fronts or proxies, like the UFA, Generosity Association, Bayadar, Gaza's Zakat Committee, placement in the broader U.S. charitable network and subsidies of Hamas, like the Middle Eastern Forum likes to say, leadership or historical ties to Islamist movements like the Muslim Brotherhood affiliates, Turkish regime proxies, or jihadist fundraising networks, right? So, a quick summary of the full Big Ten. We'll do a recap real quick. You have Globus Relief, over $184 million funded from Mormonism to radical Islamic terrorism, right? And 116 of that 184 million comes from Globus Relief, which is filled to the brim with giant connections to the Mormon Church, which we've already proven. And out of those, that number is given to these top 10 right here. Number one, Islamic Relief, $64 million, Hamas partnerships in Gaza. Number two, Muslim Aid, $16 million, which admitted funding Hamas fronts. Number three, United Muslim Relief, the UMR, 10 million jihad statements and Hamas proxies. Number four, Life for Relief and Development, 3 million, and the Gaza Network. Number five, Zakat Foundation, 2.7 million, IHH and Turkish Hamas linked partnerships. Number six, Human Appeal, 2.5 million, Union of Good Hamas Honors. Number seven, ANERA, or capital ANERA, 2.5 million, Hamas Ministry Coordination, Bayarder, and 8 through 10, but what I call Beta Male Rama Worldwide, plus one or two others, balances around 10 to 15 million combined, Hamas proxies, leadership, jihadist ties, ministry contracts. The exact so the bottom line is all of these people follow the same pattern. U.S.-based charities receiving Globus medical aid, quote unquote, while operating deeply in Hamas-controlled Gaza with documented partnerships, contracts, and leadership overlaps that critics say cross into direct support for designated terrorist groups, right? Okay, now besides Globus Relief, which serves the bulk of that 140 million, right, 119 million, spread over those 10 terrorist organizations, the number two one charity that's connected to the Mormon Church would be Lifting Hands International, LHI. It's the second major Mormon-run or Mormon-aligned charity highlighted in the MEF's investigation alongside Globus Relief. It is a separate Utah-based 501(c) nonprofit, EIN number 81-1708977, founded in 2016, focused on refugee aid in the U.S. and abroad. It emphasizes low overhead, volunteer-driven work and rapid response to crises, or so it claims. That's what it calls it, right? Let's look at the funding breakdown for Lifting Hands. The amount was over $19.5 million, $20 million, primarily grants and various other supplies, to Helping Hand for Relief and Development, the HHRD, right? Right after 2016, mostly. It has expressed links to Mormonism, a small shipping aid directly or through their partners. Founder and CEO Haley Smith is a Brigham Young University graduate, another one with degrees in English, Arabic, and Middle Eastern Studies, because of course, right? Has a background in refugee work and has lived in Arab countries herself, right? Now you're starting to see the tie there, huh? The recipient, Helping Hand for Relief and Development, the HHRD, is the chief U.S. charitable arm of Jamaat-e-Islami, a South Asian Islamist movement with a history of violence and political extremism. Jamaat-e-Islami links HHRD services as the overseas aid arm of this movement, which has been involved in militant activities in the past, including during the 1971 events in Bangladesh. Partnership with Al-Khidmat. HHRD collaborates with Al-Khidmat Foundation, the charitable wing of Jamaat-e-Islami in Pakistan. Al-Khidmat was publicly given money to Hamas leaders, a check to Khaled Mashal in 2006, and works with groups tied to designated terrorists. Lashkar-e-Taliban connection. In 2017, the MEF reported that HHRD organized a conference at a Pakistani government college in collaboration with the charitable and political wings of Lashkar-e-Taliban, the group responsible for the 2008 Mumbai terrorist attacks that killed 166 people. More concerns of the HHRD has received some U.S. government grants from USAID, which we all know through the Department of Government Efficiency, was filled to the brim with fraud, right? Despite scrutiny, and critics argue that its work in conflict zones, including Gaza, Palestine, Leaf, can indirectly support Islamist networks, right? Now, the Latter-day Saints and Mormon connections to Lifting Hands. The founder and CEO Haley Smith has strong roots, like I explained already, with the Brigham Young education. Like Globus Relief, on paper, it's said to not be officially owned by the Mormon Church, but has extreme ties, ridiculous ties to the Mormon Church, right? Now, see, with all of that said, so we broke down Globus Relief and their ties to Mormonism and their ties to funneling people that have so many alarms, right? If it was AI saying whether or not these people are connected to terrorism organizations, it would have set off an alarm after the first couple of times. Never mind, we've probably tripped over like 50 different red flag landmines by now. But what a lot of people are saying is that Globus Relief, though the problem is they're not officially owned by the Mormon Church, right? Or that Lifting Hands isn't officially owned, even though all the members throughout all of their leadership is completely directly connected to past Mormon royalty and is filled to the brim with Mormons, right? So, well, the problem with that is that you get to this, right? Direct partnerships and grants from official LDS charities, Latter day Saint charities. LDS charities, which is the church's official humanitarian arm. Also shows through partnership disclosures, project reports, and the church's own caring reports, confirmed flows include Islamic Relief USA. Over $20 million in goods and services around 2004 to 2007. Reportedly the largest U.S. donor to Islamic Relief in the entire nation, right? Med Global, which they donated $200,000 to in 2017, over $1.9 million in 2019. Ongoing support in later years. Med Global has publicly advertised partnerships with Hamas's Ministry of Health in Gaza, listed LDS charities alongside Rama Worldwide, right? Significant ongoing partner for Gaza and other Middle East projects from 2017, including 23 and 25. The church's 2025 caring report, their official Mormon caring report, mentions donating to Rama for baby formula, food baskets, and hygiene items in Syria and Yemen. That's what they call it, right? But are we so sure that's what it is? We're not so sure that's what it is, right? Rama has signed contracts with multiple Hamas ministers, social development, education, etc. An internal 2022 Hamas documents flagged this Gaza director as affiliated with the Hamas movement. Okay. A March 2026 Rama video still showed joint Latter-day Saints Rama work. Bayador Association, $3.2 million project in Gaza, including cash grants to unregistered households. We have no idea who's in the households. In other words, we have no idea where they put the money. In other words, coordinated with Hamas Ministries, Bayadar is described as a Hamas affiliate and has partnered with the son of Hamas leader Ishmael Haniyeh on projects, right? These were directly given from official LDS charities, direct multi-million-dollar grants and partnerships with Islamic Relief, Med Global, Rama Worldwide, Bayadar, etc., involving Hamas ministry coordination. In other words, if it wasn't enough to see that Globus Relief, $140 million funded from the Mormon Church to radical Islamic terrorist organizations, if it wasn't enough to make all the connections between Globus Relief and how it's directly connected to the Mormon Church and the hierarchy of the Mormon Church, and if it wasn't enough to make all the connections to all the organizations, and the second connection from the second organization, if it wasn't enough, well, then we find the official Mormon Church state sponsoring the exact same groups that Globus Relief, Muslim ran, or Mormon ran, and other organizations, Mormon ran groups, are giving to the exact same organizations, exact same ones. So they are just as much donating to those exact same people. So the argument cannot be made, well, they're not owned by the church, because the church themselves, who also donated $500,000 to Globus Relief, themselves is connected to the exact same organizations as well. Now, this is all just starting to come out, right? Now, here's some of the latest, right? Here's what's really going on about these Turkish shares, right? Let's look at this real quick to wrap up the majority of this evidence-based. We're going to give you all of it video, or episode or whatever you want to call it. There's the separate but related controversy involving the Latter-day Saints Church investment arm, Ensign Peak Advisors, right? The official investment arm of the Latter-day Saint Church, the Mormon Church, Ensign Peak Advisors. In around 2019, Ensign Peak Advisors purchased more than 200,000 shares in a publicly traded Turkish real estate company, specifically linked to Trend GYO, a real estate investment trust listed on the Turkish Stock Exchange. This was not humanitarian aid money from Globus Relief Lifting Hands or official LDS charities. It was a standard public stock market investment made through a U.S.-based investment advisor as part of Ensign's Peak Large Diversified Portfolio, which manages tens of billions of dollars in Mormon official LDS Mormon church funds, right? The Hamas connection. Israeli intelligence obtained secret documents in 2018 from a senior Hamas official's computer. These detail that the New York Times called a Hamas money machine, a private equity-style network of companies and assets worth hundreds of millions of dollars used to finance Hamas operations. One component was the Turkish real estate firm Trend GYO or related entities. Hamas allegedly used or controlled stakes in it along with other businesses in Sudan, the United Arab Emirates, Algeria, etc., to generate profits and move money. Turkish finance records confirmed Ensign Peak's purchase of over 200,000 shares. The New York Times in December 2023 and Salt Lake Tribune reported that foreign investors, including Ensign Peak and Western Banks, held more than 3% of the company's shares at times. Israeli officials had identified the network years earlier but did not fully disrupt it before the October 7, 2023 attacks. Okay? So that is the big thing that has just broken here recently that is starting to reignite and tie and bring all this together in a closed loop. So in this, we have covered everything, every dollar, every source, every organization, every body involved in all the aspects of this entire giant $140 million plus possible money laundering scheme directly from the Church of Latter-day Saints, the Mormon Church, to Hamas, Al-Qaeda, the Muslim Brotherhood, and many other radical terrorist organizations, exactly how they're connected. And this is the details of what MEF, the Middle Eastern Forum, broke. And what has just come out, especially in the last couple of days, is going all over the place. So for this was basically, we had to run down through the whole thing and explain it all for all those people out there, all those Mormons out there that say, oh, this is ridiculous. He has no evidence. He has no dollars. He has no cited sources. I challenge you to give me more evidence, more cited sources, more dollar amounts. On the contrary, I challenge you. This is all. We went through and we did every name, every organization. We even gave you the year they were founded. We even gave you their tax numbers, their EIN numbers, their organization numbers, so that you could look up all the information yourself. No, we are not making it up. No, it's not out of thin air. No, it's not out of left field. This is all real, guys. And it's crazy. So this is a developing story happening of the links between the Mormon Church and Hamas and radical Islamic terrorist organizations. It's a developing story. There's still a whole lot more to come out that we have no idea. But this is where we are so far. And like I said, I've known about this and heard about this and knew that there was a connection here for months ago. But I said nothing and said absolutely nothing and kept it to myself because I was waiting for something to happen in the news where it would to come out for me to talk about it. And now that it's come out, I'm going to explain the entire thing in detail. This is really, really, really big stuff, guys. So let me know what you think, what you want to hear more of, and see what else we can press ourselves into, because we now are the media, right? The mainstream news media. Did you hear this from any of them? No. You heard it from the MEF, but those are all verifiable evidence. It's all verifiable evidence. You can take everything we just said, go research it yourself. Go research it throughout the internet, however you want to research it. You're going to find everything that we said, right? And as the mainstream news media talking about it? No. The Salt Lake Tribune in Salt Lake City, they have to talk about it. They just say, well, they didn't know where the money was going, right? Israeli 365, they talk about it, and various other ones talk about it. And as time goes on and the more comes out, eventually they're going to be forced to talk about it. But we're talking about it here first before anyone else does besides MEF and maybe a few others, because this is the information that